Queen Elizabeth II, born Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor on 21 April 1926 in Mayfair, London, was the first child of the Duke and Duchess of York, who later became King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, and from the very beginning her life was marked by a sense of duty, service, and an unexpected destiny, since at the time of her birth no one expected her to eventually become queen, because her father was not the heir apparent, but rather the second son of King George V. And yet history shifted dramatically in 1936, when her uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee, and her father became King George VI, making the young Elizabeth the heir presumptive, and this sudden change in her life trajectory thrust her into preparation for leadership at a very early age, and during her childhood she was known for her intelligence, discipline, and sense of responsibility, receiving private education focusing on history, constitutional law, and languages, while also developing a deep love for horses and dogs, passions that would accompany her throughout her life. And during the turbulent years of the Second World War, Elizabeth began to take on public duties, famously delivering her first radio broadcast in 1940 at the age of 14 to children evacuated from the cities, offering them comfort and courage. And as she matured into a young woman, she served in the Auxiliary Territorial Service in 1945, learning mechanical and driving skills, making her the first female member of the royal family to serve in the armed forces, which reflected her commitment to service and solidarity with her people. And in 1947 she married Philip Mountbatten, formerly Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark, with whom she shared a partnership that lasted over 70 years, producing 4 children: Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward, each of whom would go on to play their own roles in the monarchy's story. And upon the sudden death of her father in February 1952 while she was on a tour in Kenya, Elizabeth ascended to the throne at just 25 years old, becoming Queen Elizabeth II, and her coronation in 1953 at Westminster Abbey was the first to be televised, watched by millions around the world, symbolizing both tradition and modernity, and thus began a reign that would span 7 decades, overseeing profound changes in Britain, the Commonwealth, and the wider world. As she navigated decolonization, political upheavals, cultural revolutions, and countless global crises, always maintaining her famous composure, sense of duty, and unwavering commitment to the motto of lifelong service, which she declared in her 1947 speech, promising to dedicate her whole life, whether long or short, to the service of her people and the Commonwealth, a promise she faithfully upheld until her final days. As Queen Elizabeth II settled into her role as sovereign during the 1950s, she quickly found herself balancing the preservation of tradition with the pressures of a rapidly changing world. And early in her reign, she became not only the head of state of the United Kingdom, but also the symbolic leader of a vast commonwealth of nations, many of which were moving toward independence after centuries of colonial rule. And her role in guiding this transition was delicate and essential, for she had to maintain the monarchy's relevance while respecting democratic aspirations of former colonies. And this was especially evident in her first major state visits abroad, where she emphasized unity, friendship, and continuity rather than imperial dominance, which helped to reshape the monarchy's image from one of imperial authority to one of shared cooperation. And yet at the same time she remained deeply tied to the domestic political system, working with her first Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, whom she greatly admired, regarding him as both a mentor and a grandfatherly figure. And though she was young and relatively inexperienced, her natural discretion, careful listening, and unshakable sense of duty soon earned her respect from political leaders, establishing a precedent of strict political neutrality that she would maintain throughout her reign, meeting weekly with her prime ministers but never publicly interfering in political debates, a stance that reinforced the monarchy's stability during times of turmoil. Her early years as queen also coincided with major international crises, such as the Suez Crisis of 1956, which highlighted Britain's waning global power and strained relations between the United Kingdom, the United States, and other nations. And although her role was constitutionally limited, she nonetheless navigated these moments with quiet composure, ensuring the monarchy remained above the fray, and simultaneously she oversaw the modernization of the monarchy itself, agreeing to the televising of her annual Christmas message in 1957, which brought her directly into the homes of millions of families, making her image and voice more familiar than any of her predecessors. And this intimacy with the public, combined with the glamour of her royal tours, elevated her into a global figure, admired not only as a monarch but as a woman representing resilience and continuity in a post-war world still recovering from conflict and adapting to new realities. The 1960s further tested her adaptability. as British society underwent dramatic cultural and social change, marked by the rise of youth culture, the decline of rigid class structures, and the increasing prominence of mass media. And throughout it all, Elizabeth maintained her steady, reserved presence, a figure of continuity in a time of upheaval. Though some critics began to question the monarchy's relevance in an age of rapid modernization, yet she sought to respond by subtly opening the institution to greater public access, exemplified by the groundbreaking 1969 television documentary Royal Family, which offered an unprecedented behind-the-scenes look at the Windsors, portraying them as more human and relatable, a move that initially enhanced public affection, though it also sparked debate about whether too much familiarity might erode the mystique of monarchy. And around this time she also invested in strengthening the Commonwealth, undertaking extensive tours across Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, presenting herself not as an imperial ruler, but as a unifying figure, symbolizing friendship among nations of diverse cultures and histories, a role she valued deeply and which provided the monarchy with a renewed global significance.